They offer a bunch of things. So like obviously in one way there's like the conference content itself, right? The talks that people give and that you listen to. When I was there in November, I definitely learned about some technologies that I just personally didn't have on the radar that were coming up. Like one of the other speakers was talking about like uh, an AI integration that runs locally inside Chromium. And that was like pretty cool to hear about, potentially relevant for our tools that I work on at work. So it's always nice to be able to take something back to the workplace and say, hey, I learned about this. But then obviously one of the very big things about going to these conferences is the ability to interact with other people in person, right? And so you get to interact with people who, work in the same area, who might show interesting things that you have not heard about before, that you're just learning about. And I personally, so I go to conferences mostly as a speaker, honestly, but I also love that from that side, just like being able to hear about how people are using Node.js, how they're using MongoDB, like what are people actually thinking that are developing using these tools. And so getting together in that way, that's something that, that for example, big conferences that are, a lot more commercial or online conferences don't necessarily provide in the same way. That's why I'm very happy to come.
Are you an introvert or an extrovert?
Extrovert for sure.
Γεια, είμαι η Έλενα Λέκου, συντονίστρια του web τμήματος στην CityJS Athens και ακούτε το podcast Life of Dev. Ένα podcast αφιερωμένο στην ελληνική development κοινότητα. Αλήθεια, τι μπορεί να μάθει μια designer σαν εμένα συνομιλώντας με developers? Today in my company, in Life of Dev podcast, I have Anna Henningsen. I think I get it right. Anna has been deeply involved in the JavaScript community, especially as one of the most active contributors to Node.js core. These days, she's part of MongoDB, working on developers' tools and client libraries, where she continues to drive innovation in the JavaScript ecosystem. She has also delivered insightful talks at various conferences, sharing her expertise, and we will see her live on CityJS at the end of May. Yeah, I'm very excited about this. Welcome, Anna, to Life of Dev.
Yeah, welcome. Thanks for having me.
So, just to know you a bit better, I would like to tell me about your work and what you're doing currently in your work.
Sure, yeah. So, like you said, I am currently working at MongoDB, working mostly on developer tools and client libraries. Client libraries, those are the drivers that you might have interacted with at some point if you've ever done MongoDB. Just to connect to your database, have your application interact with it. And then developer tools, those are the tools, like the full applications that we ship for interacting with your database. So primarily VS Code extension, the MongoDB shell, and the GUI that we ship, which is called Compass. So if you've ever used MongoDB, you've used at least one of those tools. And those are the ones that I work on.
And how this journey begin? Did you have specific studies, or have you learned coding by yourself? How was the path for you?
No, yeah. So I do have a pretty atypical career path, I gotta say. Like I did learn coding myself, yes, as a teenager.
Nice.
Yeah, I was very lucky to be privileged to have like extra time, free time where I could do that, And it was always just something that I did purely for fun, not with any specific goal in mind. And so anyway, I at one point, so I did study math in university, but at one point I just really started contributing to Node.js Core a lot. And so that was the big open source project where I really had like a, I guess in a way a stage to show what I can do. And so, yeah, at some point I was a really active contributor in the community there. And then at one point my laptop broke, and I asked on Twitter if people were willing to like just give me a bit of money so I can buy a new laptop so I can keep contributing to Node.js Core. And I got that together pretty quickly. And one of the other Node.js Core contributors, James Snell, he asked his company if they could maybe sponsor me. And they were up for that, first like as a student job, and then at some point as a full-time job. And so that's how my career started, which I guess is very different from like most developers' paths. But yeah.
And very interesting, because I always say to my students that it's very important as a portfolio item to have contribution hours. So I think it's very important as a step, and you can show your work very nice, even if you don't have any other experience.
Yeah, I gotta say, like, obviously you kind of have to be a bit lucky to be in that position. Like, you have to have the time to contribute, and you have to have like the energy and skills to do that. But yeah, if that is the case, then it's a great way to show yourself.
An inside joke: I saw your GitHub page on my students, and I said, "This is how you have a nice GitHub profile. See how many contribution hours they have." And they were, okay, I need to spend more time. So, do you want to say something?
No, I just gotta say, I haven't looked at my own profile in a long, long time. But I'm glad that you can see that it's mostly like Monday to Friday now, and it's just sticking to normal working days.
And at this point, I'm asking if there is any family member that influence your career path, or like a bonus question, if your family members understand what you do in your work.
So I guess in terms of like influencing my career path, the only thing is like my parents were lawyers, and so they made sure that I would never be a lawyer. But no, I don't know. I don't think anybody in my family or my partner really has a deep understanding of what it is that I do day to day. That's okay.
That's very common.
Yeah.
That's okay, yeah. My father also is a lawyer.
I'm
so
sorry.
The only thing that has made me is to fall in love with the computer, not anything else. So what is your typical, or probably not so typical, day-to-day task you have in your daily routine?
I gotta say, so one thing about working for MongoDB, working for an American company, is that I really appreciate being able to be a late sleeper. So I get up every morning at 11 a.m. and that's very nice. I usually I start by going to Slack, seeing what notifications I got over the last night, because people in the US are working and it's mostly an American company. Start going through the emails that I got. And then at some point there's a bit of quiet for like doing actual work myself. And then honestly, afternoon is mostly meetings every day. So that's what it looks like for me at work.
And I haven't asked you, where are you located?
So I live in Germany, in Düsseldorf, which is like on the western side, close to Netherlands, Belgium.
Nice. And what gives you energy and inspiration to continue contributing and doing this as a job?
I gotta say, like, it is always like incredibly nice to see people interacting with what you build. That's always been a big driver for doing what I did in Node.js Core when I was fully active contributing there. And it still is at MongoDB, like seeing people use your work every day, knowing that it's like in millions of applications everywhere in the world. That's always like it really, makes you feel accomplished. And I think that's a little deserved.
And let's continue the conversation and talk a little bit more about Node.js and the community. So, as a Node.js expert, what's the state of Node.js right now? Where do you see people using it, or how does it stand in comparison with other solutions?
So just for a bit of context, so like I said, I was a full-time developer on Node.js Core for a couple of years, but I mostly I when I joined the current company, MongoDB, that I work at, I didn't contribute as much anymore afterwards. Like I still sometimes do that, and MongoDB definitely allows me to do that, and I'm very glad about that. But so just I'm not like actively driving Node.js Core right now myself. Anyway, I think it's a terribly interesting position. So in that time, in the last couple of years, you got other direct competitors popping up, mostly Deno and Bun. I think we've all heard about those. And those like they try to bring more of a batteries included experience to developers. And so that has definitely been driving some of the work on Node.js Core that has been happening in this time. But at the same time, that's like, that's always adding a ton of stuff to Node.js Core. Like I don't know what the current exact numbers are, but if you take a Node.js binary from version 4 or 5, they were probably like 40 megabytes, and now they're, I'm guessing, like a little more than 100. I mean, that's fine. People don't, disk space is cheap. But it tells you a lot about like how the runtime has been developing, like where it's been moving. And I personally don't know if this is the best direction that Node.js can go into. I still would have liked a solution that's like a lot more easily extensible. I think you could compare that to maybe Python or something, where Python still like it ships with a ton of like built-in packages, right? That gives you a batteries included kind of feel, but those are still separate packages that are developed independently from the core of the runtime. I don't know, but honestly, I don't personally have the energy to drive any discussions around this type of stuff in Node.js Core. So I'll just accept whatever is coming.
And what about MongoDB that you are working more right now? Again, this pretty much the same question. So why to use MongoDB and not using other competitors? Again, it's your personal opinion, right? Don't worry about. We don't have to sell it. Just your opinion and how you are using it.
Yeah, so full disclosure, I have not been using MongoDB or any other database a lot because I mean, that's not what I do as part of my day-to-day life. I just, build the tools for interacting with it. I gotta say, though, I migrated one of my hobby projects over to MongoDB. It had been running on like CouchDB, I think it was, for a long time. And at some point, it was clear that I would just have to use something else, and I picked MongoDB because obviously now I am very familiar with how to use it. And honestly, it was a very smooth journey. Like it only took a couple clicks to set up a cluster that I don't have to pay for. I mean, this is it's a very small database. It's only like 600 kilobytes or something. There are no concerns with like maxing out the storage or anything. And it was really easy to migrate over to that. I gotta say though, if I were like a CTO or somebody who has like not a hobby project but like an actual full-fledged application, I almost don't want to say it, but I still think the main reason why you would want to use an NoSQL database like MongoDB is scalability. That is where it shines, and I don't know. I haven't felt the need to write SQL in a long time, so yeah.
Because I know that you have been again in Greece for another CityJS. How was your feeling about the community in general, I will say? The tech community, the developers you have talked with. How was your idea about our community?
I don't quite know how to answer that, but I will say I had a good time. I had a good time chatting with people at the conference. I am gonna say it seems like a very kind and welcoming developer community. Obviously, that's only based on like one day of conference. You have to keep in mind, but I felt very welcome, and yeah. I'll gladly come again. That's that's why I'll be there later this year.
We do have a very active community, so I will say I'm very proud of how I see things going forward in Greece. So that's good. Yeah. For people probably that hearing this episode and they are not from Greece or they want to come to Greece, it's a very nice combination if you want to go to a conference or meet up and catch up with people. We do have a lot of programmers and developers working in Greece. So that's a plus, I would say. And something that I always want to ask you, my guest, is because we do have a very young audience and they are at the start of their career. I will say how you will... Okay, let's say you are now starting your path and you have to start learning some things. How will be your ideal, let's say, stack you will choose? You will start, for example, from JavaScript. You will start with something else. You will use Node.js. I'm not sure.
No, so I mean, I think I can speak openly to that last question just for a bit. So, I mean, obviously there are competitors, and I don't think anybody's making a bad choice by using them. But I mean, our products are built on top of Node.js, the developer tools that I mentioned earlier, and we've looked into switching over to Deno or Bun, and we haven't really found convincing arguments, including performance, which we do care about, but which has not actually been better with them, despite them always claiming that it is going to be better. Anyway, so if I were just starting my career and I were about to learn a stack, I think the old adage of like always bet on JavaScript is still very, very true. It's still very much a language that lets you do pretty much anything. It is still the language of web development. You will not be able to avoid it at all if you're doing web development, and that is something that is still a very big thing for everyone. And I can tell myself, like a couple of years ago, I would have been very curious to see where WASM was going, for example, because that would have enabled people to write front-end applications, for example, in other languages. And honestly, I don't feel like that has really taken off. And I don't know if that's just like we're still waiting for it, or it's maybe just like JavaScript is still going to be the language for it, because that's where all the current examples are written in. That's what the DOM APIs are written in browsers. That's what, if you learn React or Svelte or Angular or any of those frameworks, they are all JavaScript based. So it lets you do that. And then through Node.js and Deno and Bun or whatever you want to choose, you can also do backend development. So like it is the one language that lets you do almost anything you can do, you know, in any software. So that's still what I would start with.
Mm-hmm. And how do you keep up with all the changes and updates we have? Did you have, let's say, a specific time that you have it only for reading or learning? Or how do you manage with all this and work and personal life?
So I gotta say, I'm probably not keeping up to date with new technology developments as much as I should.
Okay.
So I obviously I am still very interested in how JavaScript as a language is developing and where the ecosystem is going. I do follow developers on social media platforms like Blue Sky. That's always a great way to keep up with that. I personally just keep an eye on like open PRs in the Node.js core repository because sometimes I still review them and sometimes it's like very interesting to see what's happening these days. And I don't think that's a very, very sustainable solution for everyone. So yeah, I don't know. I guess following developers on social media that like do keep up with where the ecosystem is going. That's the main way that I have right now.
Mm-hmm. Do you clean your social media so that it's more focused on tech stuff, or you have separate, let's say, accounts for tech stuff and more silly ones?
No, so I currently only have like one Blue Sky account, and I don't know. I don't even know how much I'll be using that one in the long term. We'll see.
Do you have some, let's say, what now that you are working more with MongoDB? What do you think are the biggest misconceptions developers have for this database?
I think the biggest one is honestly that people don't realize how much more it is than just like a key value kind of store. Like, sure, you can write your JSON documents to MongoDB and get them out one at a time, but like it does give you most of the same tools that you would expect from SQL databases and more. So like give you an example. You can basically translate any SQL query into a MongoDB aggregation. I will say that is a separate language and that is actual translation work. AIs are pretty good at it if you want to do that. But then also one of the features that I have been involved in MongoDB, for example, last year and the year before, is something called queryable encryption. And that's like, you insert your data into MongoDB in an encrypted way, but you can still search for it with like equality and range queries. And that's like, that still blows my mind that that's like possible. And that like, actual cryptographers have come up with this and, said, hey, like this is actually something you can do and make use of. And that's just like, I don't think people are aware that MongoDB has this like wide variety of features.
Interesting. And you have any other updates from global communities or any other thing that we haven't mentioned and it's worth mentioning?
I'm not sure. Like I am gonna say like my global community, like I said, that's mostly the Node.js community. And it's always like, it is always interesting to keep an eye on it, but I'm not sure that I have anything in specific right now.
And I will combine the next two. So, because we mentioned about contributing, and again, because we have a very young audience, how will you suggest if someone wants to contribute to Node.js or to other frameworks, libraries? So, how you will suggest how to start with contribution? or what things not to do when you are starting with contributing?
I'm going to say what not to do is you should, so like when you start contributing, you should be aware of why you want to contribute. Like ask yourself, what do I want to get out of this, because it's probably easy to find some small improvements that you can do. But like, for example, for a big project like Node.js, you are kind of going to have your own agenda for what you want to work on. And you should be able to carry that agenda out on your own and be ready to defend it against other people, and be ready to join discussions that can take a lot of energy. So like if you're not really feeling up for that, I would absolutely not be shy to just like do your own smaller open source projects, do something where you think you currently have a real problem that you want to solve that other people could also benefit from the solution to. Like that's one of the core things about open source, right? You share the things that you think other people might be able to use at some point, and that's really what it's about. Like find something that you think is valuable to the wider community and put it out there. And if you want to join and contribute on a regular basis to larger open source projects, then look for one that has good support for first contributors, and where you can actually see yourself like having things that you want to improve yourself with your own energy.
I think I have 2 points, and I agree with you. So one point is that I think that this can make you a better developer. So, for example, if you want to learn more about Node.js, then it's a very good practice to spend some time and see if you can contribute to this, because probably you will learn more about this stuff. The other thing that I wanted to say is it's something that I always mention when I'm talking about contribution. Contributing is not always, we don't always mean that it's going to be coding.
True.
So, for example, you can do documentations. You can learn for the translation in another language or something. So, don't, for the people that hearing us, when we say contribution to an open source project, this doesn't mean always to be coding. It can be anything. For example, designers can also be contributors to these projects and give some feedback, some ideas about the UI, let's say, that you are developing. So anything is possible in contribution.
No, that's a great point. Honestly, I can tell you, like some of my earliest open source contributions, again when I was a teenager, were like just German translations for an open source game. Just helping out with that. That's absolutely something you can do. Yeah,
and it's very it helps you to feel accomplished, even though you're not very advanced, let's say, in coding or in the specific framework. So it's very nice. So please think about contributing in other ways else together with coding. It's very important. Okay, so let's continue our conversation, and let's talk about CityJS. I know that you are coming again in May, so do you have something like a sneak peek to say to us, or what you are thinking to do when you are in here in the conference?
I'm going to keep it vague for now, but I'm just going to say, like, I'm always very, very passionate about everything Node.js, everything JavaScript. And I love doing technical talks that give you an actual, like, deep insight into one specific area of it all. So let's just keep it at that.
Okay. maybe when the episode is published, we'll know more, and I will add it together with the episode. We'll see.
Sure.
And how important is to have conferences like CityJS for the tech community and for the developer community as a whole. So what will be a very good, let's say, what do they offer that any other exercise or activity it won't work?
They offer a bunch of things. So like obviously in one way there's like the conference content itself, right? The talks that people give and that you listen to. When I was there in November, I definitely learned about some technologies that I just personally didn't have on the radar that were coming up. Like one of the other speakers was talking about like an AI integration that runs locally inside Chromium. And that was like pretty cool to hear about, potentially relevant for our tools that I work on at work. So it's always nice to be able to take something back to the workplace and say, hey, I learned about this. But then obviously one of the very big things about going to these conferences is the ability to interact with other people in person, right? And so you get to interact with people who, work in the same area, who might show interesting things that you have not heard about before, or that you're just learning about. And I personally, so I go to conferences mostly as a speaker, honestly, but I also love that from that side, just like being able to hear about, how people are using Node.js, how they're using MongoDB, like what are people actually thinking that are, developing using these tools. And so getting together in that way, that's something that, that for example, big conferences that are, a lot more commercial or online conferences don't necessarily provide in the same way. That's why I'm very happy to come.
Are you an introvert or an extrovert?
Extrovert for sure.
Nice. Because I want to ask, what if someone is an introvert? For example, me, I'm an introvert, so I struggle a lot. I'm trained now, so I have a muscle that was trained to be more extrovert in conferences. But at the start, I couldn't handle the noise, too many people. I didn't know how to reach out and speak with people. So do you have any suggestions to introverts that will come in CityJS?
I don't know if I'm a good introvert coach. I mean, it's just like, you're all there together for the conference, and it's fine to just like pick up a conversation with anyone. I mean, I know it's easy to say don't be shy. It's easier said than done, but it's true. I don't know. Yeah. That's all I can say.
For me, that what helped me is that I started helping in meetups or conferences. So I did have something to do, and that helped me start talking with people. Maybe this is also a solution to some people. Go be a volunteer or help in some communities, and this will help you learn more people. And then you will go in a conference and you will understand that you have some people to start the conversation and then discuss with some new people. So that could also work.
Yeah.
And is there any other community or conference that you support?
I'm going to say I love going to local meetups and places. I love going to community conferences, like in other places as well, obviously, not just Athens, although I've really had a good time last year. So I'm not sure if there's like anything specific that I'll point to here, but these things exist in multiple places. CityJS exists in multiple places. I'm very sad that I couldn't, sign up for one of the other ones because just I have a timing conflict. But yeah, I always love those types of events.
Mm-hmm. And in Germany, do they have local meetups, or do they have more conference in the tech community?
So I gotta say, like for my part of the country, so it's pretty far from Berlin, and like people always think that the big tech community in Germany is Berlin, and that's kind of true. It's so the big events that are closer are probably more like Amsterdam, or actually in Düsseldorf there's one that's called Beyond Tellerrand. That if you ever hear of that, definitely, if you have the chance to go, do. Yeah, I don't know. Was that the question?
It's more like a personal research, because I see a comparison between Greece and other countries, and I see that we have a lot of local meetups and more casual things together with conferences. And I'm trying to understand if this is a local thing and we are more, let's say, we want more to go out there and discuss with people, or this is something, don't know. I'm trying to understand why in other countries I don't see a lot of local meetups. You don't have to answer. It's
no,
my
it's true.
personal.
I think there's some bias because you always hear about the meetups that actually do happen, and obviously those exist in big cities, and it's normal for like smaller communities to not have as much of that. I honestly also don't really know how the landscape changed with COVID there. I know the main meetup that I was going to here locally is not happening anymore since then. I would still be absolutely excited to go if at some point we're doing that again. But currently,
you can organize one.
That's true. But I also
you can start one.
I know how much time and energy that takes. So not to discourage anybody, but I'm not going to do it unless I'm sure that I can. So.
Okay. From my personal experience, this is a group project, I will say. So even if you want to start one, you will have to find a group of people that wants to join and work together. So this is not a one person job to organize a meetup.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
But who knows? Maybe someone will hear our episode and you will have some discussions afterwards. We'll see. I would like to know if there is any new ideas on this topic afterwards. So we'll see. And let's go to the fun part of the episode. In this part, I'm going to do quick questions. You don't have to explain the answer. You can just shoot it and we'll go on with the next questions. And it will be a nice way to learn more about you personally and not you as a developer. We'll see. Or maybe we will learn more for both your personalities. So are you ready?
Sure. Yeah, let's go.
What is your strongest skill?
Honestly, it's that I have a good memory. It really helps with a bunch of things. Also makes me worried that I'll be replaced by an AI, but for now.
What is the most boring task in your workday?
There's not a lot of boring stuff because, we're developers. We automate away the boring stuff if you can at all. I guess it is like just checking emails in the morning, filtering out the important stuff. That's, yeah.
What was the first programming language you fell in love with?
That was BASIC on an old Commodore 128.
Okay.
So, yeah. I am surprisingly old.
Is there any other language, framework, or tool you'd like to learn next?
Rust. So learn it properly, not just surface level. So.
If you weren't doing the job you have now, what will you be doing?
I would probably try to work on some open source project that just does cool stuff that I would want to see more of in the future.
If it's not in a developer aspect and it's more,
Oh,
let's say, wild.
Great question. I would probably be spending time in the US until the country doesn't work anymore. Just like enjoy it while it lasts.
Okay. What has been the best project you've worked on?
Is it fair if I just say Node.js?
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
And then we go to the this or that section. So a proper 1 hour lunch break or something quick and back to work?
It's almost always something quick and back to work.
Scheduled emails to be sent later or emails sent to the spot?
Send on the spot. I don't know why I would schedule something, honestly.
I am the one sending scheduled emails. And I will say why I'm saying this. Because, for example, if I want to send you something and it's very late at night, I won't send this at the night and I will schedule it to go in the morning.
Fair enough, but I mean, at least for work stuff, I hope people have their notifications turned off outside of working hours.
They should, but they aren't. So,
all right.
2 monitors or 1 large screen?
1 screen, always.
Digital to-do list or pen and paper?
Pen and paper. I've tried to do digital a couple times and it never stuck. So.
Remote work, hybrid or on-site?
Remote work, because otherwise the cats are going to complain.
Start work late or leave work early? You do answer this, I think.
I do, yeah. It's I get up at work for work at 11 a.m. So that's me.
So start work late is your answer. A box of snacks or a box of office supplies?
Snacks, always snacks.
Marvel or DC?
Honestly, not a big comic person.
Okay, or nothing.
Or not.
Lord of the Rings or Star Wars?
Lord of the Rings, for sure.
Lego or Playmobil?
Also Lego, for sure. But the old ones, the bricks, not the, not the sets where you just build something specific.
Rolling Stones or Beatles?
Rolling Stones. How's that even a question?
Board games or video games?
Board games, yeah.
Favorite board game at this time?
Does D&D count?
Yes.
Then Dungeons and Dragons, yeah.
And you can relax now. The questions are over.
Sure.
And let's go to the last part of our conversation. So we've talked for the tech industry, but we talked more for Node.js or MongoDB and JavaScript, let's say, oriented industry. So in this part, I want to broaden a bit our conversation and give me your opinion, how you see going on as a tech industry in general. What's the state right now? What we will see next? A wild guess, let's say.
So I think the AI hype is slowing a bit down right now. Obviously, still very, very interesting stuff happening, including the Chinese DeepSeek and everything. But I think people have, or at least I hope people have more of an understanding now of where that is going. Like, AI can do a bunch of stuff. It's really great as like a smart autocomplete for you. But it's not going to replace, for now, at least the ability to think. So that's something that let's keep that in mind. I don't know. I think generally speaking, I don't know what the next big thing is, but it's coming up, and it's not AI. It's not a new JavaScript framework. It's something else entirely. We'll see what that is.
You are very, let's say, quiet. I'm not sure if you do know something and you can't say it. Well, it gives me this vibe that you do know, but I can't
No,
say
so
it.
I think people are realizing that even with like big stuff like AI coming up, there's always still like there's people behind it all, there's companies behind it all, there's governments behind it all, and all of those other things have a lot of inertia. They are not as fast as like technology itself is, and so that's something that's worth keeping in mind. Like, if I wanted to, my work life probably wouldn't be looking very different a year from now if I just wanted to keep things the exact same. Probably not going to happen. I like that things are moving forward, that things are improving, but yeah.
And what type of projects you think we will be working in coming years? Is it gonna be, let's say, for example, fintech was very in hype in the previous years, or education? So, as a category, let's say, what kind of projects you think we will work on?
That's also a really hard question, so
Again, it's your personal question.
I
It's
think
not. Yeah.
so yes, I'll take it to a bit more personal level and like scope it to where I am currently living, because like I think we're going to see a lot of like digitalization happening or catching up where it hasn't happened previously. Germany is always like a prime example of where things are moving very slow in that regard. And so, for example, a country like ours will have to do a lot of catching up. I think that's going to happen. Other places, I don't really know.
We do have the same problem here, so
Yeah.
we do have to spend more time and use these tools to be more automated, let's say, more digital in some things. So yeah, in Greece
It's
it's the same thing.
I think it's mostly going to be a lot of small stuff, just like how you check out at the supermarket or how you order your meal at a restaurant. That those things are becoming digitized.
Mm-hmm. And what skills do you believe we need to develop? So this could be hard skills or soft skills. So you can open this your
I
answer.
I mean, I think the main advantage that we still have as like human beings as developers over AI is that we have the ability to really dig in and understand a problem. And that is something that we need to do even more of, because, yes, a lot of the coding work can be done for you, but it might not be done like, you still need to sit there and understand what is actually happening. What is the code that your IDE suggested for you actually doing? Is it actually making sense? Does it map to the right conceptual models? Like all of that thinking stuff is going to just like be more and more important.
More critical thinking, probably,
I guess you could say
as a
that.
skill.
Yeah. Yeah.
And do you have any last advice for people that are starting in this chaos of AI and ChatGPT tools? How to
Um,
cope with this?
yeah, I mean, I guess that kind of ties into the previous question. Like, really take the time to understand things, like learning how to understand these things. That's also a skill that you need to develop. And that's not something you're going to be able to get around. And at the same time, another good piece of advice for somebody who's just really starting their journey is to bet on JavaScript. You're not doing anything wrong if you're learning JavaScript, or let's say TypeScript. I mean, let's be honest here. And yeah.
Nice. So, Anna, we are finished with the episode. I think it was went very nice. So, thank you again for coming here, and discussing with me. And before we end this, this is something I do to every episode. You can challenge someone for me to host in another episode. Just for your information, if it has to do with something with Greece, it will be best because this is a podcast for... okay, I will explain. Because this is, as a goal, it's to help the Greek community and the Greek developers that are working in Greece or in abroad. This is my main, let's say, goal. But again, if you have a ready answer, you can go with this.
Yeah, so I gotta say, I did look at previous episodes of this podcast, and yes, it was a lot of Greek that wasn't really, not my primary language. It's hard for me to pick a specific person, but I'm gonna say, since you touched on it earlier, I think it would be really nice if you had somebody who organizes meetups or conferences and just talk about what that entails, what the effort is, and how to go about these kinds of things.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And if I stop you and you have another one to suggest, you can suggest also someone that is not from Greece. I will take both your answers.
No, it's actually fine. I'll suggest Shelley Vore, who's working on Electron at Microsoft. And it's also a great person to talk to. So if you can, try to get her.
Oh, I will. I have, let's say, 100% success in the challenge. So no one said no until now. So I'm positive. So, cool. Anna, thank you so much for accepting this and to come to my podcast. And see you in CityJS at the end of May. I will have stickers, so we have to meet to give you stickers for Life of Dev. So see you in May. On May.
Yes, I'm very excited. Thank you for having me, Lina. And I'll see you there.
Το podcast που μόλις ακούσατε είναι μια παραγωγή της SA Athens. Αν θέλετε να μάθετε περισσότερα για εμάς, μπείτε στην ιστοσελίδα sae.edu. Μείνετε συντονισμένοι και μην ξεχάσετε να κάνετε εγγραφή στο Spotify. Και μέχρι το επόμενο επεισόδιο, never stop coding!